Welcome everybody, just been setting up. If you're on YouTube, I'm just putting a link there that you can attend the live webinar if you want to ask questions. Otherwise, I can't see the chat on YouTube, so you'll just have to watch the webinar and follow along with that with being able to answer your questions. But if you want me to answer your questions, just follow the link that I put in the chat, and you can go along and register for tonight's webinar and then participate in the chat. Okay, we're going to get going very shortly. A couple of minutes or so away, we'll get going. Thank you. Okay, everybody, thanks for your patience. We'll get going now. Thank you. Okay, everybody, welcome to this evening's ACY Securities webinar. My name is Duncan Cooper. Thanks very much for attending on this holiday, very close to the holiday season evening. The market's getting a little bit quiet, but let's get into tonight's webinar. Before we move along, if you can just read through the risk disclaimer. And if you have any questions as we're going through this live analysis webinar, just type your questions into the question and answer box. I've got the chat box open too, but if you can try and keep your questions to the question box, it just helps me. All right, moving along. If you don't know me, my name is Duncan Cooper. I'm the Senior Market Strategist and Trading Manager at ACY Securities. And for the most part, I'm a full-time Forex trader. I've been trading the market for more than 15 years now, and I've been mentoring clients for more than 10. If you want to contact me regarding the webinars, you can get me at duncan.cooper@acy.com. It's on the screen there. So if you need to jot that down, there it is. As well, you can connect with me at the acy.com website, Market News tab, at the YouTube ACY Securities Australia channel, and personally, you can connect with me on Twitter and LinkedIn there. All right, so I have been going through the beginner webinar series, which has finished this week. That's going to recommence on Tuesday, the 11th of January from the beginning. And we'll go through all these topics. And there's also another page of topics. There's actually 15 webinars within the beginner webinar series. So the first one will recommence on Tuesday 11th. And if I just drop to the website before then, obviously we've got tonight's live market analysis webinar. But if I go to, let me just pull the webinar page. Here we go. So if you go to the webinar page, which is acy.com education webinars, then this is where you'll get a list of what is coming up through Christmas and then into the new year. This is this evening's, but next week, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Sydney time, I'm going to be doing a bit of a forecast of what I think is going to happen over the next 3 or 4 months, looking into the new year. And then that's next Wednesday, the 29th, then Tuesday, the 5th, the Wednesday, the 5th of January, Thursday, the 6th of January, I'm going to do some live market analysis. And then we're getting into the education webinars recommencing on Tuesday, the 11th of January. So that's what's coming up, a little bit less than normal as we go through the Christmas season. All right, let's get to my charts. If you're new to the webinar, I can see maybe one new name or two. My charts will look a little bit different to the ones that you can just download from the ACY website. So if you want to get my charts and follow along in the webinars, I will just give you a link in the chat. There we go. So the link, first link is to be able to upgrade your charts to mine, if that's what you want to do. So I'm just going to go to my desktop, and you need to download from the first link this file. It's a WinRAR file, so you need WinRAR software to open it. You can download that for free. So it's WinRAR, WINRAR. We'll click on it. It will open up, and these folders here need to be moved to the MT4 platform. So just watch the video. I show you exactly how to do it. It just takes 2 minutes. Video is just 2 minutes long. That's how long it takes. And then you'll have my charts and layouts. Now, it doesn't delete anything that you've already got, but it will add in along the top here in templates, drop down. You will get these 4 templates now. Along the toolbar, there'll be a few extra buttons added in. And down here in the profile section, you'll get my 4 profiles. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm using the 12 pairs when I'm doing my general analysis, okay? So that's the ones I'm using tonight. Right, so as I say, it doesn't delete anything that you've already got, but it will add in my templates, profiles, indicators, and charts. And what you'll get in the 12 pairs is there are 12 currency pairs in the 15-minute chart time frame when you first set it up, and a dollar index day chart. That's what you'll get. I've got a few extra charts open here that I've been watching, but that's what you'll get. So I predominantly work with these 12 currency pairs, not all of them all at the same time, but whichever ones I feel are working the best, then I'm looking at those. Now, yesterday I did a live analysis, and I was saying that we're heading into Christmas, and the market can often be range bound within that. So yesterday I was really working heavily on defining where the major levels of support and resistance are for currency pairs that I'm watching, and then just working around waiting to see if price can come to those levels, and then kind of see a setup to trade up or down from those levels. And we have been moving up quite nicely over the last 24 hours. Maybe it's because the market's a bit thin in its orders, but it has been moving up, been testing some levels, been breaking through some levels. But as we get into Christmas, tomorrow's Christmas Eve, next week, a lot of people on holiday, the market's very thin in orders. The market can often be very, very quiet and just stuck between support and resistance because there's not enough orders to push the market one way or the other. So that being said, I might just go back to my browser. There's a news item coming out tonight. Last one really for before the Christmas period. That is Canadian news, more prominently the US core PCI price index coming out at 11:30 p.m. tonight, my time, Queensland time. So I'm at forexfactory.com here at the news page. Shows you what high items are coming out. So the US 11:30 p.m. core PCI price index is coming out. After that, you can see that the majority of areas are on holiday. The market will still be open next week, but most people will be on holiday. There's no real news coming out to drive the market, and often it is very quiet. So be very, very aware. Generally, I don't open up new positions next week. It would have to be at a really good level where I felt like I didn't want to miss out and have to trade at a certain level. But I will be watching the market. And if it does get to a very good level that I like and it starts to hold maybe for a day or two, I might decide to jump in. So I will be still watching the market, but won't be trading as heavily as I normally do. So let's get to the charts. And I want to start with the dollar yen. And go to daily chart. Put these lines in here yesterday. And I was actually discussing this area that we're actually trading at the moment at 114.269. And I'm just going to take a few lines off just to clear it up so we got a bit of a better idea about what price is doing. Then I'll put these back. And I'm going to move to the weekly chart. So the weekly chart is actually in a downtrend. I said that last night. We're rallying up last 3 weeks. And this line here is from the monthly chart at the top of the range here. Market last month rejected the top of the range. Is that the final top? And we're just having a rally. On the weekly, the MACD is crossed down. We have a lower bottom, we're rallying back up. To the daily here, put a fib in. Last trading day yesterday, we touched a 62% retracement. So we dropped, changed the weekly trend to down. We're rallying back up here. Is the 62. We had a rejection candle yesterday at the 62% level. And look left, there's all this resistance to the left. So if I just put my lines back in, the most important ones are these top two here. That one at the 95 level can get deleted. So just in here, this top here, and look left, there's more tops here. So I put really two lines in, creating a resistance area that the market could move into and trade back out of. Because we've moved down into a new downtrend. This is a rally at the moment. You'd have to take out that top not to be a rally on the higher time frame weekly chart. So I'm anticipating that we've moved down. We're rallying. We're at a resistance area, 62% level we touched yesterday. If we hold there and the trend turns back in line with the weekly trend, the logical step would then be that price moves down to come down to retest weekly support at 112.52, or move down through the 127 extension, or even further down. Of course, at the moment, we haven't had a turn here yet, but this might be the area where the turn is going to initiate over time. And also what I saw is that this area of resistance here is really possibly a left shoulder. This is possibly the head here, and possibly over here we're forming a right shoulder. So we have a head and shoulder pattern. So moving to the 4-hour chart so you can see price action more clearly. Slight uptrend still on the 4-hour chart, but we came up to the 62 into that resistance zone. We're coming back in today. Are we going to reverse back out of that today and start to put in a lower top on the 4-hour chart? I don't know. But we're in a good area where we could maybe see a reversal. So with this last week's top here at 114.26.9, this is where you'd like to see the market pull back below today. So yesterday we had a good reversal candle. Be nice if we had another one today in the area that we're at now. So we've got two reversals at that level. And then what happens next week? Does the market start to move the 4-hour chart into a downtrend? Do we start to see maybe here a lower top form, moves down, rallies back up, wants to put in another lower top from a lower bottom, and then in that area would be where I'd start to look to initiate a position to open for the move down in line with that weekly downtrend. So at the moment, I'm just watching that area, and price might not do much. It could just continue straight up, and what I'm saying at the moment could be null and void, or it could hold at this area and we might see a move down and that head and shoulder pattern could form. So that's what I'm just looking at there on the dollar yen. Going to start on the left now. Now, the Aussie yen's not really doing what I would have liked it to have done. We were last week rejecting this level of weekly resistance. We moved down, changed the day chart trend to down. So I was expecting this would just rally back up, put in a lower top maybe at this level, this daily level at 81.71, or come back and hold at 82. But obviously at the moment we can see it's not doing that, it's moving up. Now to the weekly chart. So we had a very negative week last week, but this week for whatever reason it's just disregarding the negativity of last week. But overall trend on the weekly is down because this low here is fractionally lower to that low. So this could just be corrective rally before it puts in a lower top to move further down. The MACD's crossed down. And the reason why I'm emphasizing that I have the philosophy that this is a rally in the downtrend. There's the higher top, but on the indicator MACD, we don't see that. We've got divergence at the top. So we had a very heavy move down for the whole month last month from that area. We're having a bounce up at the moment. Higher bounce than I was expecting. Put my line back. So at the moment, what I'm going to be doing is just monitoring where this might fail. Hopefully this is just the rally before we move back down in line with that weekly downtrend. So what I'm doing is from the final top to this slightly lower bottom here, drawing a fib, I'm going to be watching the 62% level. seeing what it might do there. All right, so yes, the day chart trend is up. So if you're intraday trading, then your bias might be to look for an opportunity to buy on a lower time frame. But I'm taking my actual longer term approach from the weekly chart. And so I'm looking for this to falter somewhere. 62%, 83.39 would be a logical level. Using the fib tool to measure a pullback. Be nice to see what today brings, because even though we're moving up today, it might not be up by the end of the day. Because last week we had a very negative rejection at 82, and for some reason now the market's happy to be above 82. So a very quick change of mind at the moment. I don't know if that's just because we're heading into Christmas and traders aren't around. Time will tell if this is a very short-lived move. So watching the 62% level for a rally at the moment. Other than that, I'm not seeing any reason to enter. If you're going to be a buyer today, you should have already maybe bought lower down in the day. There has been a trend line break to the upside if that was your bias. At the moment, not seeing any intraday entry for a buy or a sell. Something would need to set up, but I am monitoring for hopefully a topping out process to occur over the next week. Aussie dollar daily, exactly like what we're experiencing on the Aussie yen. Last week, we had a very negative candle here. We held at daily resistance and fell back below and traded back down to this low here, weekly support. And I was maybe expecting this to move further down from the negative weekly candle last week, but of course you can see it's moving up. So obviously we're in rally mode at the moment. Day chart trend. So the levels that I've been watching, I might just take a couple off and keep the big levels in. The bigger levels, we've got monthly support down here at 69.91. This is weekly support at 71.06. This has been weekly resistance at 71.70, but now if we move back down, it could be support or back to resistance. And then last week's high here has been holding at, well, last week, this area through here, 72.20. We're at 72.35 at the moment. It would be nice if that could close back below that level today or tomorrow. Other than that, if it doesn't do that, then this is probably moving up further, and the day chart trend is up. Bigger picture trend though is down. So the bigger picture move down is that move here down. This could be running back up to the 62 here at 73.41. So there may be opportunities to get long intraday over the next week. But if this moves back below 72.20, that's negative for the pair in terms of the uptrend that we're seeing. All right, so that's the key level in the stand at the moment. Holding above 72.22, or beg your pardon, 72.20 is the buyers have to defend that now if price is going to move up maybe to the 62% level. So time will tell over the next few days. I wasn't anticipating that we would get back above that level with having a very negative week last week, but we're getting into the Christmas trading and anything can happen. So at the moment, it's wanting to have another week up. But I'm interested to see where this finishes come the end of the week. If it's finishing below 72.20 by the end of the week, that's weak for the pair. And then we could be moving. We could false break this level today. We could be moving back down to weekly support in the short term. So the key areas, I would say, if we move back below 72.20, is a move back to 71.06. That's where support's been coming in through this area over the last couple of weeks. Again, like the Aussie, you're not seeing anything to do. If you wanted to maybe trade today, you should have been trading early in the day when we started to break north, getting some support there on the 7200 level, trend line break there, and that's where the move started. So what you might see if you're, depending on where you are in the world, you might see this fall back below 72.20 today. for example, like so. If this was to come back up to 72.20, and then you saw maybe a trend line break on the 50-minute chart here to turn down, then that area could once more become resistance. It was strong resistance last week. We're 15 pips above it. That is not a major break at that level. That could just be a false move in the short term. So you could watch for that if you're still wanting to trade before Christmas. Does it move back below? All right, euro again to the day chart. And, we were down here at the start of the week. I was anticipating maybe we're going to move further down after a very negative week, the weekly chart, after a very negative rejection candle. So I just showed you two pairs, last two pairs, very negative last week, yet we're having a week up. Last week on this pair, we were very negative. I was expecting maybe price was going to move further down. At the moment, it's just trading back up. We did have a week down. We have a fresh low for the week, but we're trading back up inside last week's candle. And the weekly trend is down, and even the daily trend here is still down. It's got a lower bottom, moving up, doesn't change trend unless it can break above that top, which is last week's high. So it's trading all the way back inside last week's high. And, if you see a nice trigger up here, often we can trade up close to last week's high and not break it, and then we trade back down to the low. So I don't know if that's going to happen this week. We've only got today and tomorrow to go. But the key levels for this week, can we move back below 129.09? We heavily rejected that level, that daily level last week. Can we get back below there by the end of the week? If we can, then that becomes resistance to watch. Then are we going to trade back down to weekly support? There's weekly support at 127.92 and a further level down here at 127.37. So we might be stuck in that broad range. We could, if we do close above, then I'm guessing we're going to start to see an uptrend over the next week. And the target for that move up would be up to weekly resistance up here at 130.73. You could be drawing a fib in from high to low and looking for a 62% retracement as a first target. That's beyond weekly resistance, so we might not be able to get there. So for me, just taking that off, a clear line in the sun would be this area here, weekly old top here, where we move through. That should be resistance on a retest, first of all. The question is, by the end of the week, where are we? Are we back below 129.09? We could be back below that today. We're only at 129.30. It's literally 21 pips away. So to the 4-hour chart, we're having a negative 4-hour candle at the moment. It's outside candle because the last one was a small one. So we've had a higher candle. We're lower now. So we had a high high, lower low on the candle to the last candle. 1-hour chart, what we're seeing here is in the area of yesterday's high here. There's a bit of negative divergence. Price has been going higher today, but it hasn't made a higher peak. It hasn't crossed up either. So I suggest maybe the momentum's running out up there. We're changing the trend on the 1-hour chart here. We may well see a test back down to 129.09. And as I said, can we close below it? Closing below it is good for the sellers in line with the weekly trend. All right, it's bad for the sellers in line with the weekly trend if we're closing above. So let's back for the sellers because the dominant trend on this pair is down based on the weekly chart. So I'm looking for an opportunity to be a seller again. What I'd like to see is, like I was showing you on a previous pair, can this break below the level that we've broken above at the moment? You see last week here, we screamed above the level, heavily got rejected and traded down. So are we going to just do the same? Can we move back below? Can that level become resistance once more here and then look for an opportunity to trade down? If we hold above on a pullback, then the buyers are still in control and you're probably then looking for opportunities to buy moving up from 129.09. All right. And on the 15-minute charts, if you wanted to try and trade that reversal on the 1-hour MACD divergence, there's 15-minute divergence as well. So It is suggesting some form of short-term pullback. Bit of divergence on the 15 there. You've already missed the trend line break entry. It's a little bit higher up there than where we're at now. So there was maybe an opportunity there to trade 1 hour and 15-minute negative divergence, getting closer last week's high, but you've missed that. So question now is, do we move down to 129.09? Does that hold or fail? And whatever the outcome of the event is, that's your direction you should be trading in. If it holds, look for an opportunity to trade up. If it fails, look for an opportunity to trade down. So you're asking yourself the question, does 129.09 become support now as we've moved above it, or are we going to break back below? Does it become resistance? And just back to the daily, I mean, if this further goes up, there's still the opportunity for price to come and test this high here, last week's high at 129.63. And we could hold there, or we could false break that level and trade back down. So those are the key levels right now for the next 24, 36 hours. 129.09, 129.63. What's the market doing at those levels? So do we fail at any one of those levels? Do we hold at one of the levels and move up? Just keep watching the market and see what it's doing. Euro dollar, I said yesterday, this is your daily look. On the weekly chart, we put in yesterday weekly resistance at 114.22, weekly support at 111.86. The dominant trend is down on the weekly and the monthly. Last few weeks, it hasn't been doing too much, as you can see there. Candles all kind of sitting to attention, which means when you get to the 4-hour chart, it's going to be sideways. So the weekly is down, the daily is down. Hopefully you can see here, we're just trading up from support. I've got it marked in at 112.27 from that low, and resistance from that high at 113.55. So it's about 125 pips, 130 pip range. The market's just moving in over the last 4 weeks. Not a great pair to trade. The only thing good about it, though, it's seemingly at the moment quite reliable between those levels. So I prefer in a range like we're seeing at the moment to trade with the dominant trend, which is down. So executing a trade up at resistance, if we can touch it on a failure, would be ideal. At the moment, we're pulling back, but, you know, dealing with such a consistent range here, I wouldn't want to trade too short of the top because this may have not finished moving up to the top. So yes, it could just trade straight down at the moment and you miss out. But when you've got a very well-performing top of the range here, when the market's been obviously topping at, I will be looking for 113.55. Can price come back up to that level? Touch it, fail. If it fails within 5 pips, that's fine, but I think we're a bit short there. We failed it by 15. That could actually still come back up. So to the 15-minute chart, there's your top of the range. Doesn't take much on the 15-minute chart. You can actually show the top and the bottom range on the day chart, perspective, support and resistance. So I would like to see a failure up here. That might give you a good opportunity to trade down to support. If you came back down to support next week, you might see a good opportunity to trade back up. So those are the 2 key levels on the euro dollar at the moment. So at the moment, nothing to do because it's not at resistance or support. And I strongly advise you that in range-bound markets that we're going to have over the next week, define your support and resistance on the daily and weekly. And if resistance is being respected, look to trade down. If support's being respected, look to trade up. In the middle area, it can get very choppy. So let's try to stay on the outskirts when we're dealing with holiday times. Pound yen, we were down here, or we were down here probably yesterday when I was talking, and I was discussing this band of resistance here. This is daily resistance. That's at 152.32. That's weekly resistance here at 152.84. So we're fractionally above there at the moment, but we might not be by the end of the day or by the end of the next couple of hours. I will be watching to see if 152.84 can hold. It might get to 153, the figure. But this could easily, like last week, you can see the rejection from inside the area all the way back down to here. So are we going to hold here and move back down? So you're going to have to watch price action on a lower time frame. So what it's doing here, does this area that we're just starting to trade through at the moment get clearly broken? Do we see that price action on the 15-minute chart starts to respect that level as support? It hasn't moved up enough for me at the moment to be a break. I would need to see it clearly move up first of all, and then pull back, and does that level become support? At the moment, I wouldn't be trading any minor pullback, like a 115-minute candle to that level to me, and you think it's getting support. We're too close to that level to act as support, because I don't know if it's broken as resistance yet. I'm not sure if that level is still resistance, so I wouldn't be using it as any kind of support level at the moment. If we moved up another 30-40 pips and then it pulled back, yes, I would. All right, so watch 1300, watch 152.84. We are at a very strong level of weekly resistance there. Do we move higher, pull back? Does it become support? If it becomes support, you're looking for buying opportunities to trade up to the next level of resistance, which is up here at 154.73. So as we head into the next week, over the next week, does this level hold? We may well see by the end of the day that this withdraws back, may even be back below 152.32. So if this withdraws back, then I would suspect you're looking for a move back down to daily support here at 149.52 or weekly support at 149.05. If we hold above here, 152.84 becomes support intraday, then you're looking for a further move up to 154.73. And with that big move down, putting a fib across it, the 62% level does line up nicely with that top. So it might be a question of we've sold down, we're rallying up to maybe the 62, and then moving back down, putting in a lower top. Of course, to do that, we have to break through the level of weekly resistance that we're just trying to navigate at the moment. All right, so that gives you a good viewpoint. To 15, you can watch whether, this moves up and through. This area here could give a trend line break. I'd like to see the break of the trend line below that level of 152.84. But you don't know what's going to happen over the next couple of hours. You might get a trend line break below that level, and then that could trade down all day long. Got a message coming in. Cameron, you asked me, do you recognize the imbalances of order blocks or not really? You'd have to expand on your question. To give you a better answer. I mean, I know what order blocks are. At the moment, roughly speaking, there's a bit of an order block here, and that's where the market's trading into at the moment. So that's why we could hold there for me. That's based on the day chart. Go to the what? So I'm just looking at your other bits and pieces coming in. So yeah, depending on, this is getting a little complicated maybe for some. but I can quickly have a look for you on this. So you're talking about 1 hour chart and order blocks, and you know, if we're on the 1 hour chart, there was an order block here, and then we moved out. There's been an order block here. So if I get my right tool. Here, and then we've moved out. So, you know, I could easily see price reversing back down to this area. If then it breaks below this area here. Now, maybe for a lot of people in the webinar tonight, they don't know what order blocks are, and I don't have the time to explain it too much, but because Cameron's asking me, I'm just assuming he knows what I'm talking about. So what I'm really doing here is looking for little areas of consolidation before the market breaks out. So lots of orders here, and then we break out. Lots of orders here, then we break out. That's the kind of philosophy. And where we get the breakout, price often will come back to the point of the breakout. So at the moment, there are some points where the market could move back to. In terms of where the market's moving to at the moment, if I can get these to clean off. All right, so I'm just having to squash it all in. So there's a bit of a drop area down through here. So the market could, if we're looking at order blocks and where the market could get to, if we break above this area of resistance on the weekly, there's an order block just there. So if I drag that all the way across, so the base of that square is where the market broke out, then yes, potentially the market, I'll go to the 4 hour chart now. The market could, and you can see there, we have, let me just drag that across a bit. So the bottom of that square rectangle is where we broke out, but I can see on the 4 hour chart here that there was a bit of an order block just there before we broke out. So the market could be filling this, moving up and filling orders in this big drop area here. So we could be moving higher to do that. All right, so that's a little bit more technical. So Cameron, I'm guessing you understand exactly what I'm talking about there. For the rest of you, I don't know if you do, you don't, but yeah, we could move up to that level, but time will tell. We could just hold at weekly resistance and drop back down. All right. All right, thanks, Cameron. All right, let's move along. Pound dollar. So these are the levels. This is the day chart, and these are the levels that we put in yesterday. And to the weekly, the trend is down. This is weekly resistance here at 134.11, weekly support, and we're having a couple of weeks up. Doesn't change the dominant trend at the moment. Trend is clearly down here on the weekly, and it is too on the monthly. So we're just having a currency pair can't go down without having corrective moves, and so we're having a couple of weeks up at the moment. Doesn't mean the long-term trend is changing. I mean, it could have changed here, but we're not going to know that on the weekly chart unless we break above that top. So you have to have rules for engagement, rules for trends. This is lower tops and bottoms. We're having a couple of weeks up. Last lower bottom broken at 134.11 is clear resistance for this pair. So daily, last week, this daily support area that got broken over time was resistance last week at 133.53, and currently we've moved through that level, so I'm just going to take it off. So obviously not acting as resistance today. I'm going to take that off. There is the potential, I know we're moving up, but there's a top just here, and there's a top just there. In fact, we're just moving up to that top. So there's a top there. This is actually a low here. So this would be daily resistance at the moment at 133.95. Get my fingers right on the keyboard. There we go, 133.95. So there's a little area of daily resistance there. The bigger level there is weekly resistance at 134.11. So weekly support down there. This daily level in there isn't doing anything for us. So the boundaries of where price could hold it at the moment, as we're moving up, are quite clear at 133.95, 134.11. We're trading at the moment 133.90, so we're almost at the first level. And it's too late to be a buyer to trade up to that level because we're almost at the level. So what you now have to think about is the weekly trend is down. Just going to go back to the daily a moment. There's a bit of a range here from that high. This is where price moved down from. This is where the break of this level of support here started from that low there, moved down to bottom. I mean, normally I would put my fib across a range where there's no broken tops, but I can see that that was the last high we had before we moved through. So I just want to put that in. I can see now that we're in the 62% area approximately. Now, it's not going to necessarily stop at the 62 there, but I just saw that top and I wanted to just have a look to see whether that fib really tells me anything. Tells me a little bit, you know, if we close below that level, just based on the 4-hour candle, it's telling you that the 62% level has been respected. But more importantly, you can put that fib back on your own charts if you want to. More importantly, the area that you want to watch over the next 36 hours or so, trading whatever trading is left for the week, and then as we move into next week, is 134.11, the area between 133.95, 134.11, so approximately the 134 level. How does price respect that level? Because one of two things is going to happen. We're going to trade in, and we're going to trade out. If we trade out, then you're looking for kind of the 134 area to become resistance once more, putting the lower top on your 4-hour chart. If it starts to do that, then obviously that's proving that's holding at that time. And then you're looking to trade down back to weekly support. Now, the other scenario that could happen over the course of Christmas and into next week is we just clearly move through here. So then in the short term, then you're asking yourself, does that become support on your 4-hour chart? Does you put in a higher bottom on top of there to move up? All right. So, but don't forget, where is the critical trend? Let's go to the monthly chart. MACD's crossed down here. And the more important chart time frame at the moment, this weekly is very negative. There's lower tops, lower bottoms. I know it's moving up, but this might be just one good week, 2 good weeks in all before we have another 5 weeks down. Because this has just had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks down, 2 weeks up. All right, the trend is down. This is just corrective. So don't start to think this is the next major bull run. I mean, it could start here, but we don't have anything on the higher time frames telling us that it started yet. All we're seeing at the moment is a short-term day chart uptrend headlong into weekly resistance. So you want to watch what's going to happen at that key area of resistance. Do we move above? Does it become support? All right. So if you want to be aggressive today, you know, you might just be waiting for a trend line break to the downside. But that's for you to determine how aggressive you want to be at the area. Or you can wait till your 4-hour chart shows you a lower top for me. All right. All right, it's the pound dollar. It's pretty much touching that level as I'm talking. Be interesting to see what it does. All right, New Zealand yen. Put these lines in yesterday, and that's where we were yesterday. That's why I had this line drawn in, expecting that could be resistance, but we traded above it yesterday, and we're above yesterday's high at the moment. So critical at the moment for this to move further up is, can it hold above that level there? 77,968. Next major level though is that weekly top area here. Does that hold the market? for a move down with the dominant trend, because this is the weekly chart. We rejected up here to a lower bottom. This is just a rally at the moment. This rally, though, I would like it to stop back to the daily at this weekly top here. Getting back above there isn't good for the good for the sellers and the downtrend. At this big dominant downtrend that started to occur on the weekly chart to a lower bottom, for my mind, for that to hold and still continue down long term, we probably need to hold at this level here, 78.64. So short term, you know, today, can we close above this level? Price is at 78.06. We're only 9 pips above. It looks quite a lot there on the 4-hour chart, but it's only 9 pips. In another hour's time, we could back below that level. We could just be stuck between daily resistance and daily support through the Christmas period. But yes, we could be moving up to test weekly resistance up here. So, you know, at the moment, unless you want to buy that as a break, the more prudent approach would be if this starts to continue up, does it pull back on the 4-hour chart, hold there as support for a move up to test weekly resistance. But the critical level on the chart is 78.64 as we look at next week's trading. As we look at today's trading and into tomorrow, what is it doing at 77.97? Any upward move we're having, you're too late to get in at the moment. Should have been getting in earlier in the day down here. Trend line break to the upside. So here, if price was to move back below 77.97, if you can move back below 77.97 and you can get a trend line break then below that level, you might think that's trading down from resistance. All right, so that might be an opportunity for you. So you just have to watch price action. You know, you might go, I don't want to be that aggressive because we have been moving up over the last 2 days. Then on the 4-hour chart, you would need to look for, there's a minor bottom here, price to move back below that minor bottom, come up, put in a lower top. Once you start to see the 4-hour lower top starting to form, getting in then for the move down. And then is it moving down to support? So a few of these pairs at the moment are above last week's high, but the question is, can by the end of today we close above those highs? Prime example was yesterday. This is a yen pair, so getting back to the dollar yen. That was last week's high, which we traded above yesterday, but we couldn't close above it. I know we're above it again today, but if we don't close above that 2 days in a row, that's just negative. And there's a higher probability then that price will move down. Now, if we can close above it today, that's good for the buyers and not very good for the sellers. So, you know, what happens today on some of these levels is quite critical. All right, last pair I just want to go through is the New Zealand dollar. And like I was talking about on the Aussie yen and the Aussie dollar, we've been in dominant downtrends. We still are potentially on the weekly chart. We're just having a rally, but as well on the day charts. And this has been very negative on the New Zealand dollar. This is a weekly resistance, but we're above it. It has been resistance though, once, twice to that rejection. We closed above it yesterday. We're back below it earlier in the day. And obviously we're above it today. But it doesn't mean to say we're at 68.29, so we're 21 pips above it. Doesn't mean to say we'll be above it by the end of the day. Now, if we are above it by the end of the day, that's not very good for the sellers in the short term. Next critical level of resistance would be at 68.59. That's another weekly low there. So 2 weekly charts, just so you can see the lows. There's a low there that's been acting as resistance. If we don't hold underneath there, the next level is at 68.59. And what I would say, going back to the 4-hour chart here, or sorry, back to the day chart, this level at the moment seemingly is no longer holding as resistance, but what is the close on the candle? We could be coming up to test 68.59. If we get above 68.59, then we're clearly having an upward move. So if we can't hold at that level, your next level would be up here. Resistance and support that was 69.79. Cameron, regarding order blocks, you can see it on the day chart here. There's a bit of an order block here, and then we broke down. So we could actually be wanting to come back up to the base of that order block here. But time will tell. Hopefully it won't, because I'm short from higher up. So I'm hoping that, well, I was hoping that 68.04 would hold. That's obviously not holding intraday at the moment. Can 68.59 hold now? What could happen on the 4-hour chart as we're heading into next week? Question would be, where do we finish today? That's last week's high here. So, but the more important level of support or resistance is 68.04 here. Do we move back below today? Do we simply move back to become support, trade up then to the next weekly level of resistance? Does that hold? And do we move back down? These are the scenarios for next week. Back down support. Or do we break above? If we break above, clearly, you should look at that level for support to trade up to the next level I gave you at 69.79. All right, so the question will obviously be, intraday today, the key level is the one that we're heading towards. That's last week's high, 68.33. Which we're trading at, touching and trading at the moment. We could, back to your weekly chart at the moment, we could just be having a week up as we're heading into Christmas, holding at last week's high, or trading up to the next weekly resistance level. And then as we get back into, trading in the new year, we might have a week up this week, maybe a minor week up through Christmas. And then do we fall back into the dominant trend, which is down, and putting 4 weeks down? So it'll be interesting to see what happens. So those are the levels. We're at last week's high, 68.33. Are we going to move further up to 68.59? Or are we going to hold here? So intraday today, if you're keen on trading, we've moved up, we've pulled back. There's a higher bottom here. We've just tested that level once more in the last 15 minutes, kind of rejected it a little bit. If you want to be aggressive, you could just be waiting for a trend line break here, or at least a break of that swing point low there. Then that might trade back down to retest 68.04. Then the question is, does the market want to move back below 68.04? So it just depends how you want to trade. Do you want to trade aggressively? Do you think last week's high will hold now? Or are we going to move up and through? What I am seeing, and you could wait for a bit more confirmation, but what I am seeing is that that peak that we're forming here on MACD is lower to the peak in price. So, my trade set of a trend line break, MACD cross, wait for both, MACD cross, trend line break. You've got divergence there at last week's high. Last week's high often get false broken before we pull back. Maybe we'll pull back. So you just need to determine yourself, is that something you want to trade? All right, so you can monitor that. We all have to make our own trading decisions as to whether we want to execute something. But I'm just giving you the levels that the market's respecting. Are these levels going to hold or break through? All right, before we finish for the week, I just want to touch base on what the dollar index is doing. Yesterday, I was saying that monthly chart, this area of old support is now becoming So old resistance here is now becoming support. It's 95.95, that level. And when you're looking at that on the weekly chart, we had 1 week down, and then we've been holding on top of it. I know this week's negative. On the daily, we've been sitting on it. We're just zigzagging up and down on top of it. That might be what happens all the way through Christmas and into the first week of next year. So if we clearly break back below 95.95 on the dollar index, that's dollar weakness. So pairs to the US dollar will move up. So those pairs like the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, they'll move up above those areas potentially that I'm showing you. If this moves up though, and wants to break above the highs at 96.91, approximately 97 level, then those rallies that we're seeing on the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, which are also translated into Aussie and New Zealand yen, those rallies will probably come to an end because we're going to see downward pressure on the Aussie dollar and the New Zealand dollar. All right. So watching that. And the other thing that's been happening on the indices, the S&P 500, has been negative. It's been negative and then back up to the highs. If you go back to the day chart here, first of all, it's been rejecting the highs. Put in a minor kind of double top here and came down. So we're rolling back up to the highs from a lower bottom. Getting some support from this weekly top here, 45.50. So the question is, this rally that we're having, draw a fib on it. It's the 4-hour chart. So that level of resistance from a day chart, it's at 47.19. I've drawn a fib from the high to low. We're on the 4-hour chart here. And we can see that we've come up to test the 79% level. Is this the last gas rally before the next decline down? Time will tell to see what it does over the next 36 hours and into the next trading week. But if we start to decline heavily, or we start to decline heavily into as we start the new year from that day chart resistance, let's go back to the daily here. So there's the resistance, there's the tops here, multiple tops approximately through this area. I'm just using that top there at 47.19 to put an area of resistance in. That's holding. So let's call it 47.20 approximate level. That level, there's lots of sellers out there at the moment. You know, next week we might come back up to that level, might come back up to that level today. We may reject. So if we see stock market weakness though, that's going to be weakness for the currency pairs. The dollar yen will move down in a risk-off environment. Yen crosses will move down. Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar will move down in line with that weakness as well. So bear in mind what this is doing. Now, if this screams up and through, that's going to be positive for the pairs such as the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, and the Aussie yen, New Zealand yen. All right, so bear all that in mind. That'll help you with your directional bias moving through Christmas. But normally through Christmas, we're often very quiet trading. You know, the likes of the euro dollar I've seen over Christmas time, it barely moves 20 pips. And the range yesterday, in fact, we had quite a big range yesterday, but if we have a look at what has been happening through the week, Tuesday put in about 40 pips high to low. Yesterday, though, we were a bit more active. We put in 78, so that's more of a normal day. But before then, we've had 2 days probably of about 40 pip range. Then we're back to normal in one trading day. Today, at the moment, we're putting in from high to low 30 pips. I've seen it through the Christmas period more like 20 pips. It's just doing nothing. All right, so be very aware of that. That's why I'm suggesting, have your key levels put in. If price is at a key level through Christmas that you like and you see it turn and you want to have a go, fair enough. But make sure you're trading at key levels of support and resistance where you'd expect price to fail. Because when the market's only trading in a 20 pip range and you see this, say, moving up and you think, okay, it should be a buyer, it might only move 5 pips and then comes back down and you just can't do anything with it. And then you're stuck in a trade that's going against you and and it doesn't really want to move up, and it really doesn't want to move down, and you're just in it. So if you want to trade through Christmas, make sure you're trading at the key levels. All right, so giving you the major levels to watch throughout the Christmas week. I'm interested in seeing what price does do. I just want to go back and see what the Aussie yen's doing. It's still moving up. Aussie dollar's still moving up. Euro yen's not, so Euro yen's a little bit different. It's not able to take out last week's high. Pound dollar, it's still moving up. It's getting up to the figure now. It may be going up to 34.11, so watch 34.11. But we want one good candle in there. You know, if this completely reverses back out on the next 15-minute candle, that's negative at resistance. So at the moment, we're testing the figure. So I don't really need that color in there. I'm just highlighting it for the purpose of the webinar. So now I can see where the figure is. So there's about a 16 pip range of resistance there that the market's going to have to contend with to move higher. What will it do? You can monitor, see what happens. All right, everybody. Just before I say goodbye and wish you all the best for the Christmas period. Coming up, and if you're on YouTube, sorry I couldn't answer any of your chat because I can't see the chat, but you're more than welcome to join us in the live webinars. So coming up next week, I'm going to do a bit of a forecast for next week. Then into the first week of the new year, Wednesday, Thursday, live market analysis, so we can have a review of those levels that I'm talking about now. What have they been respected or not as we get back into the new year? And then on the 11th of January, Tuesday the 11th, we'll start with the education webinars again. So if you're on YouTube, thanks very much for attending. Sorry I couldn't answer your chat. Just got a last chat, I think, coming in from Cameron. You're asking me. All right, you're saying the pound yen's jumped up, but it's jumping up because the pound dollar's moving up to its resistance. So it'll be nice, it'll be interesting to see what does the pound dollar do here, because if this reverses down from weekly resistance, then you're going to see pound yen reverse back down. So that order block up here that we were talking about, price is getting quite close to it. So that area is at 153.40. So that might get up to 153.40, or at least it's gotten close to it. But that could still move back below weekly resistance by the end of the day. Depends what the pound dollar does. So whatever happens here, I'm guessing will be dictated by what the pound does here. All right, thanks, Cameron. Remo, thanks very much. Merry Christmas to you as well. Cameron, thank you. All right, everybody, thanks for attending. We do have one more webinar before the new year, but for those that have been attending the webinars throughout the course of the year, thanks very much. Hopefully you got good value from them. And let's all look forward to a prosperous new year, 2022. Hopefully be a good trading year. Hopefully we have lots of trends and not too much consolidation. So I look forward to being with you again in the new year. And I'll actually be with you just for one day next week on the 29th, if you've got the time. So if you're getting a bit fed up with Christmas and you need a bit of break from the family, bit of quiet time. So next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Sydney time, I'll be here anyway, doing a bit of an outlook for next year. I'll probably spend most of my time on the monthly and the weekly charts, just defining where the market's bound by and having a look at the dominant direction and where, you know, can we be moving down or up to a very significant level? Can we make a bit of a forecast ahead of time so that we maybe can position ourselves for a move to one of those key levels? All right. So thanks very much, everybody. If you're on YouTube, thanks very much. Have a great evening. I look forward to talking to you next time. Thank you.